from the beautiful and historic Government House here in St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. Welcome to the Patio Series. I'm Brian Way. I hope you're doing well and that you're safe. And many thanks to Her Honor, Judy Foote, as always, for the invitation to be in this beautiful setting in what's turned out to be a great afternoon here in St. John's. Today's guest is a repeat offender to the Patio Series, one of our province's greatest imports, national treasures, one of the more highly regarded musicians and persons that I know. Please welcome Mr. FERGUS O'BYRNE.
Thank you, Brian, for those kind words. Much appreciated. Good afternoon. I see there we have a scattered few out in the garden. It's and everybody's obviously socially distanced properly, which is really nice to see. Just one thing, just to mention to you before you leave here today. If you see any spare twigs or weeds around, maybe you can just pick them up and take them with you. This is a huge garden to be dealt with, so so on your way out now, take a twig or two with you, and then you can go up and do my garden. Anyway, I'm delighted to be here, and I'm going to sing 4 songs. First song I'm going to sing is a song that was written by a fellow named John Devine from Kings Cove in Bonavista Bay. And John Devine worked for the A&D company out in Badger, out in the Grand Falls area, back in the early 1900s. And apparently, John was a great worker, apparently, but for some reason or other, he was fired from his job. This is a true story. He was fired from his job, and he wrote this song because this annual St. Patrick's Day concert was coming up. Wrote this song, and of course, everybody in the town was there, including the bosses of the A&D company. When they heard the song, I guess they were so embarrassed about how well he praised them, they offered him his job back for life. I don't think that'll happen anymore, but anyway. But anyway, it's a great song about people working in the woods, a song called The Badger Drive. There is one class of man in this country that seldom is mentioned in song, and now that their trade is advancing, they'll come out on top before long. They say that our sails have dangers, and likewise our warriors bold, but there's none know the life of the driver, what he suffers from hardships and cold. With your peckballs and babies, paddles and all, they're sure to drive out in the spring, that's the time. With their cocks in their boots, they get on the logs, it's hard to get over their time. Billy Dorothy, he is the manager, and he's a good man of the trade. And when he's out there seeking drivers, he's like a train going down grade. Sure, he's a man that's kind-hearted, on his word you can always depend. But there's never the man that goes with him, but would like to go with him again. With your peckles and peavies, paddles and all, they're sure to drive out in the spring, that's the time. With their cocks in their boots, they get on the logs, it's hard to get over their time. The drive, it is just below Badger, and everything is working grand, with the jolly fine crew of pig drivers, and Ronald Kelly in command. Now Ronald is boss on the river, and I'll tell you he's a man that's alive. Well, he once drove the wood off Victoria, now he's out on that main river drive. With your peckpoles and babies and paddles and all, they're sure to drive out in the spring, that's the time. Cocks in the boots, they get on the log, it's hard to get over their time. I tell you today, home in London, well, the Times it is read by each man. and little they know of the hardships, how they drove the wood off Marianne. Now paper is made out of pulpwood, and many more things you might know, and long may the lads live to drive it upon Paymeock and Conjo, with your petpoles and peavies, paddles and all, sure to drive out in the spring, that's the time. Cocks in the boots, they get on the log, it's hard to get over their time. So now to conclude and to finish, well, I hope that yous all will agree in wishing success to old Badger and the A&D Company. Long may they live for the flourish and continue to chop, drive and roll, and long may the business be managed by Mr. Dorothy and Mr. Cole, with your peckpoles and peavies, paddles and all, they're sure to drive out in the spring, that's the time. Cocks in the boots, they get on the log, it's hard to get over their time. Yes, it's hard to get over their time. Thank you very much.
The string drive.
Yeah, I might change the last song to the old Selena. You got that one? Probably do.
I'll muck my way along.
Yeah. Thank you. Well, breaking a string wasn't part of the act. Normally I would take the time and tell everybody just to talk to each other. But you can't do that unless you're in your same bubble. So, anyway, we'll muddle through. Anyway, this next song is another. It's a Newfoundland version of an old English maritime song, and I was singing this song years ago, and I came across this version of it down the Great Northern Peninsula, and it's a story of a fella who's an Irish fella who's determined to go to sea and go to England, and he goes off to sea first time ever, and he gets swallowed by a whale. Not Jack now, that was another fella. There are several Newfoundlanders that have been swallowed by whales. This fella's name was, he was from Ireland originally, I think, but his name was Patio O'Brien. Okay. Well, Paddy O'Brien left Ireland in glee. He had a strong notion, old England to see. He shipped in an alley for England was bound. The whiskey he drank made his head spin around. Laddie whack, fal-de-ral, fal-de-ral-de-dal-dee. Now, Paddy had never been sailing before. It made his heart ache when he heard the loud roar. By a glance of his eye, away he did spy. A big Udden says, Pat, I'll be at by and by. Laddie whack, fal-de-ral, fal-de-ral-de-dal-dee. Well, Paddy ran forward, grabbed hold of the mast. He wrapped his arms round it and there he held fast. The boat gave a tip and poor Pat lost his grip. Down in the whale's belly, poor Paddy did slip. Laddie whack, fal-de-ral, fal-de-ral-de-dal-dee. He was in the whale's belly 6 months and 5 days, till one morning by luck to his throat he made way. The whale gave a snort and she then gave a blow, and out on the dry land poor Paddy did go. Laddie whack, fal-de-ral, fal-de-ral-de-dal-dee. Now Paddy is landed and safe on the shore. He swears that he'll not go to sea anymore. The next time I fancy in England to be, it'll be when the railway runs over the sea. Laddie whack, fal-de-ral, fal-de-ral-de-dal-dee. Laddie whack, fal-de-ral, fal-de-ral-de-dal-dee. Laddie whack, fal-de-ral, fal-de-ral-de-dal-dee. Thank you very much. There's only 5 of them. Yeah. Okay. I brought along this little machine today. This is a concertina. They were very popular actually with the Salvation Army in Newfoundland years ago. It was the way the instrument was introduced to the province, because it's very popular in England and Ireland and Europe. Played a lot in Ireland for dance music. But here in Newfoundland, years ago, when Salvation Army people were setting up churches, they wanted to have something to play music, and they didn't always have access to the great old big pump organs that you see. But they did have concertinas, and they were able to use these concertinas for their music. So it's I know my son plays one too, but it's a totally different animal than this one. I won't go into the details of it, but it's he can't play my one, and I can't play his one. So it's and he plays his way better than I play mine. So it's this song. When I knew I was coming down here, I had to choose a song that sort of has some connection to the Burin Peninsula, because this is a version of a song that was found in the Mansfield Greenleaf collection, and also in the Gerald S. Doyle collection. There were just 2 verses of the song. So myself and Jim Payne recorded this song many years ago now, and it's an old sea shanty, and but the title of the song in Newfoundland is Bound for St. Peter's for Baccy and Rum. And of course St. Peter's, we know, was Saint Pierre Miquelon. But back in the day, they used to call it St. Peter's. So it's there was a great connection between the Burin Peninsula and Saint Pierre Miquelon. In fact, what used to happen was that the fishermen from the Burin Peninsula in the old days, they'd go over to Saint Pierre with a load of wood, firewood, because there's not much firewood in Saint Pierre Miquelon. So they'd go over to Saint Pierre Miquelon with the wood and go door to door selling it. And in exchange for the wood, they would bring baccy and rum back home to Newfoundland. So it was a good deal, and nowadays they don't bother with the firewood. They still go over. Some do. Ryan's Fancy, we did a show back in the 1970s, one of the television show series we did, and one was rum running on the Burin Peninsula, and we talked to an old timer down there. Had some great stories about going back and forward to Saint Pierre. It doesn't happen anymore, we know that, but in those days it was very lucrative business. And your lines, if you're singing to each other in your own bubble, are goodbye fare thee well, hurrah me boys, we're homeward bound. It's an old capstan shanty, and they'd use this song when they'd be coming into port. The last shanty sung on the vessel as they hauled up the anchor, and they'd walk around the capstan pulling the anchor in. So it's called Goodbye Fare Thee Well, or Homeward Bound. We're bound for St. Peter's for baccy and rum. Goodbye fare thee well, goodbye fare thee well. We're bound for St. Peter's for baccy and rum. Hurrah me boys, we're homeward bound. And when we are landing up to the dock, goodbye fare thee well, goodbye fare thee well. All the boys and the girls around us will flock. Hurrah me boys, we're homeward bound. And one to the other you'll hear them all say, goodbye fare thee well, goodbye fare thee well. Here comes Jolly Jack with his 18 months' pay. Hurrah me boys, we're homeward bound. And when we are landed we'll jump all ashore. Goodbye fare thee well, goodbye fare thee well. We'll head for the tavern, we'll walk in the door. Hurrah me boys, we're homeward bound. The landlord will greet us, his face all a smile. Goodbye fare thee well, goodbye fare thee well. Sail, drink up ye sailors, it's worth all your while. Hurrah me boys, we're homeward bound. But quickly a smile will turn into a frown. Goodbye fare thee well, goodbye fare thee well. There's poor Jolly Jack and his money all gone. Hurrah me boys, we're homeward bound. bound. So 'tis out we are bound, and 'tis out we must go. Goodbye, fare thee well, goodbye, fare thee well. 'Tis out we are bound, we cannot say no. Hurrah, me boys, we're homeward bound. Thank you very much. Yeah. So I broke a string. Plans changed. I was going to do one song, but I'm going to do this one instead and throw Brian to the wolves, so to speak, because I didn't tell him I was doing this one. So, but he's a dab hand to pick up material, so no doubt he'll do a stellar job flying through this one. Key D. Okay. Key D.
Thanks for the help.
Good to know.
And actually, another Newfoundland song. That's great. The other song I was going to do was a song written by my cousin in Ireland, but I need a guitar for it. Too big a job to get it all squared away again. No, this one is another Newfoundland song. This was written back in the day when boats were commissioned from Europe, especially Scotland and England, to come over and process the fishery and hunt seals. They'd commission these boats from Scotland and England. And so they'd come across the Atlantic Ocean, and the first boat in those days in through the Narrows was the boat that got the pick of the crop of people waiting to go working on those boats. They were all lined up all these Newfoundlanders were lined up in the docks waiting to be signed on to go seal hunting or go fishing. And of course the first boat in then would the skipper would know who was on the dock, so he'd be able to pick out the best crew that he could pick. So there was always a mad tear to get in through the Narrows as fast as you could and be the first boat to tie up. And on this particular year, the boat that came in through the Narrows was a boat called the Old Paulina. So they wrote a song about it, and it goes like this. There is a noble fleet of whalers sailing from Dundee, manned by British whalers to take them all to sea. On a Western Ocean passage, we started on the trip. We flew along just like the song of a gallant whaling ship. Oh, the wind was on a quarter, the engines working free. There's not another whaler that sail the Arctic Sea can beat the Old Paulina. You needn't try me, sons. We challenge all but great and small, but empty to St. John. 'Twas the second Sunday morning after leaving port. We met a heavy south gale, it washed away our boat. It washed away our quarterdeck stanchions just as well. So we said the whole shebang are plunging in the gale. Ah, the wind was on the quarter, the engines working free. There's not another whaler that sail the Arctic Sea can beat the Old Paulina. You needn't try me, sons. We challenge all the great and small, one and to St. John's. Our Jackman set his canvas for what I got of steam. Captain Guy, the daring boy, came plunging through the stream. And Mullins in the husky pride to beat the blooming lot. Oh, to beat the Old Paulina was something he could not. Oh, the wind was on a quarter, the engines working free. Not another whaler that sail the Arctic Sea can beat the Old Paulina. You needn't try me, sons. We challenge all the great and small, and to St. John's. There's an old Terra Nova, a model without doubt. The Arctic and the Aurora, they talk so much about. Our Jack was on a steamboat, the terror of the sea. Right to beat the Old Paulina on a passage from Dundee. Oh, the wind was on a quarter, the engines working free. Not another whaler that sail the Arctic Sea can beat the Old Paulina. You needn't try me, sons. We challenge all the great and small, and to St. John's. So now we're back in old St. John's. The rum is very cheap. We'll drink a health to Captain Guy who brought us over the deep. A health unto our sweethearts, to our wives so fair. Not another ship can make the trip of the Blainer, I declare. Ah, the wind was on a quarter, the engines working free. There's not another whaler that sail the Arctic Sea can beat the Old Paulina. You needn't try me, sons. We challenge all the great and small. One more time. Ah, the wind was on a quarter, the engines working free. Not another whaler that sail the Arctic Sea can beat the Old Paulina. You needn't try me, sons. We challenge all the great and small. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, and thank you for hosting us, Your Honour. It's this an amazing spot, as we've known for many, many years. It's grand to walk through. There's a beautiful, beautiful peace garden down there. Sometimes come in and just sit down, but walk and enjoy the gardens and the greenhouse. And thank you, Brian, Karina, and everybody for having us here today.
Well, Fergus, if you were a vessel, I think you were the first to tie in. You're my pick of the litter. Thank you so much for this. Stay safe, everyone. We'll see you again soon.
Thank you, Fergus.
Thank you.
Check out singsonginc.ca.